Joining us now is Congressman, 7th District Dave Brat with us, Republican. That's the Central Virginia area suburbs of Richmond. Dr. Brat, good to have you with us, man.
Hey, John, great to be on.
Boy, so much to talk about, Dave, so little time. I want to get to the international scene and the Syrian situation. My only concern here is on the surface, if you look at logic, okay, it made no sense for Assad to drop a barrel bomb on his own people in the suburbs of Damascus, where 95% of the area was now controlled by his army. The other 5% was getting done in a sweep. Trump said he was going to pull out. Why would you do this and antagonize the world? And I'm going to let you answer by saying that I've talked to a lot of people. I got basically two schools. One group says, well, because he's nuts. That's why. And he just wants to send a message that he's back in charge. There's another faction who says they don't think he did it. Like maybe it was the Saudis, maybe it was the rebels, maybe it was Israel. So you got two separate factions. Do you have any evidence that this was Assad that you have seen? And what do you think ought to be done?
Yeah, well, I just want to weigh in on your side on the previous segment, and the two segments are tied together. This deep state stuff is out of control. And Tucker Carlson reported on the Syria story last night, and last year, the horrendous gas attack that, was on 60 Minutes, et cetera, the Department of Defense, I guess, a couple months ago came back and said they still don't have evidence. And that's inexcusable. I mean, how in the world do our intelligence agencies not have evidence a year later, much less on this one, right? We should already have intelligence in the Congress. And so it's a total failure of oversight, just like in the Rosenstein case you're talking about. Now you got Rosenstein overseeing the Russia probe when he was one of the central actors on the dossier, right? So, I mean, it's the fox guarding the hen house. He was in on the dossier, which Comey called, salacious and unverified, et cetera. 10 of the top FBI political appointees, not the civil servants that work every day, but 10 of the top political appointees are fired or stepped down or gone. And that's just cracking the ice, right? The CIA, I'm sure, is coming next. The State Department already is coming next. And the left talks about a constitutional crisis. They've shown us the way. There is a constitutional crisis. And you pointed it out. Our oversight folks have just been cut off. Hillary had $2 billion in that foundation, like you pointed out, and it's collapsed. And Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows and Ron DeSantis just put in a new bill to get to the bottom of that one, the Hillary piece. We've got new stuff going forward on that a week ago. But we need another special counsel on our side, and we're all asking for that. We have letters in. We're going to move forward on that. And so I just want to make sure I put myself down clearly in that camp. And then on the Syria side, you're right. You cannot make a decision if you don't have data. And so we have to demand that. It's not good enough to hear guesswork on major foreign policy decisions. We want to have the intelligence in front of us, and so we're going to call for that this week as well.
Congressman, it doesn't make any sense to me why Assad would do this. And I'm a radio talk show host, right? I'm in Washington. I don't have the direct evidence. I would hope that before we acted, we would have that. But from watching various reports and reading certain things, the only evidence that we have that Assad did this is one guy thought he saw a Syrian helicopter drop something. That's their evidence. There's no video. There's no direct link. Now we find out that the canisters that carry the agents were made in Germany. So how would that have even gotten to Assad? They don't trade with Germany. There's just a lot of questions here. And yes, Assad is brutal. I get it. And certainly it's not above him doing this. It really makes me question because, look, he might be brutal, but he's not stupid, right? He's been able to maintain control of that government. And so why you would do this and invite the U.S. to get back involved when everything was going your way as far as the war is concerned just doesn't add up. That doesn't mean he didn't do it, but, look, my fear is, Dr. Brat, that the neocons take these things and they just turn it into another protracted conflict. And I certainly don't want to lose any more of our young men and women in Syria for a mission that has not been authorized by Congress. You've not done your job. There's no AUMF. There's no declaration of war. And there's no mission. And there's no end game. There isn't anything. It's just drop bombs on people.
Yeah, no, last night Tucker interviewed a senator from Mississippi on the Republican side, and he was dancing around the issue like crazy and implied that he had inside information that led him to a different conclusion. Tucker said, "Can you please tell me what it is?" And he said, "No, I will not do that." And that's not acceptable, right? I mean, if there's secret information, et cetera, we're the representatives of the people. It's not like we're supposed to hold a monopoly on secret information, and I don't think he had it personally. I think he's just bluffing. And so this week, we're going to go up to D.C. today, and we'll be in session tonight and tomorrow and the rest of the week, and we're going to get that information, I'll guarantee you, because we're the representatives of the people, right? And the people want to know what is our interest in Syria, right? What is our U.S. national security objective? And you said before we send any more of our young men and women into harm's way, you better know the answer to that. And so we're going to demand answers, and I think you've nailed it.
Congressman, the president saying the other day that he's going to divert some of the $1.3 trillion omnibus budget that passed, that he might not spend it all. He might divert some of it to the wall. There's been really a debate that's gone under the radar screen whether or not he's got the power to do that. You're a long-term doctor of economics. Does the president have the ability to move money around once it's been appropriated by the Congress?
Well, that not generally. You just don't get to move any money you want. But if money has been appropriated underneath a certain budget line, say the Army Corps of Engineers, et cetera, I've heard that pot of money can be used technically, legally, for building the wall. And so that's one option, that gets you 10 to 20 billion. I've heard other, talk about money coming in under asset seizure forfeiture pots of money that have 40 billion in it, right? Collected from Mexican drug confiscation assets, et cetera. And so there are a few pots, I think, that do fit the bill. And this week we're going to get to do what's called rescission, too. President was upset with the budget he received. And so we're going to get to make some cuts at that, and then we'll see if we get 51 votes in the Senate. They're just playing another shell game with us. And then we've got a balanced budget amendment coming up. I don't think that's going to go through. I put one in a year ago, kept my word, and it only got 50 votes. And so this time it may not go, but it'll be a good exercise. The American people get to see who's voting yay and nay, and we don't do that enough. And then finally, Rush Limbaugh covered. I was on several of the national news. The Senate decided not even to do a budget this coming year. And we've given up our most powerful tool to do policy because the Senate doesn't want to have to vote before November. They're scared of voting. And so we can't do any major legislation before November. And it's not just politics. It's doing the right thing, keeping the economy moving and doing welfare reform, getting everybody back into the labor force instead of leaving the labor force. That's one of my key concerns as an economist is just we have people that have been caught in poverty traps, and we got to do better for them, and we're not right now. We're trapping people all over the place. And so we have heavy lifting to do with the Senate. I'm in the Hill yesterday. I'm in roll call. I'm in all the papers asking Senate Leader McConnell, give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, right? Before we spend all our time and energy working on these things, let us know if you're just going to kill it ahead of time. We need to know.
You know what? You're exactly right, and I'm glad that you're doing that. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, trucking the truth across America. We're with Republican Congressman from the 7th District of Virginia. That's the Richmond suburbs, Dr. Dave Brat. Dr. Brat, let's get to trade. China blinked yesterday. Dictator for life of the Chinese Communist government said that the Chinese would dramatically reduce the tariff they have on U.S. cars going into China. Right now it's 25%. He said that he was going to dramatically bring that down within 30 days in response to the president. Isn't that exactly what the president was trying to do?
Yeah, and the analogy and the logic is similar to what's going on in Korea and the Middle East, et cetera, right? The foreign policy experts supposedly landed us in a total disaster, right? In the Middle East, ISIS, North Korea, nukes, Iran, nuke deal. You can't get too much worse. And on the trade front, China's been stealing our intellectual property and not playing by the rules of free market economics for 20 or 30 years. And some of that we allowed intentionally. We were hoping they would transition, but they haven't. And so everybody complains, but President Trump's been left in a position where he has to take the total failures in foreign policy and then with respect to trade. And it looks like now we're getting a win out of it. And so that's what we need. We need China to start playing by the rules of the game that we all did. We paid a huge price, right? World War II, we set up the Marshall Plan. We reestablished our arch enemies, Germany and Japan, to show good faith. And so the U.S. doesn't really need lectures from too many people. We've been team players and win-win players, and that's what's required. To have free markets, you have to have free markets, and we don't have them right now. And so I think the president's getting us back on a path that'll get free and fair trade, and so I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Okay, so I've got 2 minutes. So I called for today the president should fire Sessions, Rothenstein, Mueller. I thought this Cohen raid was outrageous for $130,000. The resources the government is putting against it could happen to anybody in any of our homes tomorrow if they simply don't like us. What is your position?
Well, my position on Rosenstein is the clear case because he was in on the dossier, and we have all sorts of intelligence and information about how that has been way off. And so Rosenstein's the head of it, and we need to have a special counsel on the Hillary stuff, and they're not doing it. Instead, the only attack is on Republicans. When the prior administration, as you said, I mean, they bleached bit computers. The email story's never been addressed. $2 billion, a lot of that in foreign money has never been addressed. And so our side is asleep at the wheel. So I think this is over the top, like you said. And so now it's incumbent on Paul Ryan to give the green light for our oversight guys to go. And Mitch McConnell has to give the green light on oversight for them to go. And if they don't, then the rest of the country has to step up, right? Because we have our oversight guys, Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows, DeSantis. No one questions any of these folks, right? They've got the information lined up, ready to go, and it's just a matter of whether leadership will let it go. And so that's what it comes down to.
Well, you know, what's interesting, too, they're talking about, well, you know, there was this meeting that Donald Trump Jr. had with some Russian person in Trump Tower. What about the Bill Clinton Attorney General Lynch meeting for an hour and 15 minutes on the tarmac? Why is there no investigation about that? Why is no inquiry about that? Why is there no subpoenas on that? They talked about their grandkids for an hour and 15 minutes? You got to be kidding me. I mean, the duplicity here is frightening. And this is the power of the federal government here, just out of control. And they want Trump out. This is just my opinion after being here. They want him out, and they will stop at nothing to get this guy out of there. And this isn't about ideology. Mike Pence is more conservative on the ideological spectrum than Trump is. They don't care. Pence is one of them. Pence plays the game. Pence is in Washington. He was a governor. He gets it. They're afraid of Donald J. Trump because they don't know what he's going to find out as he drains this place. And they're out to get him, and I don't care. I don't think they're going to stop at anything, Dave. I'm out of time, man. Thanks for being with us. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, John.
Hey, I just want to tell everybody before you go, May 4th breakfast at the Marriott, the breakfast with Dave Brat. You can sign up. You got to go. I'm going to be there live. Go to DaveBrat.com, DaveBrat.com. Sign up and go. It's at the Marriott in Richmond on Friday, May 4th. I'm going to be there. Dave's going to be there. Scalise, the majority whip, is going to be there, and lots of other good people. It's an annual event. It's fun. May 4th, Friday morning, Marriott. Go to DaveBrat.com.